I want to ask you guys this, and I know, JD, you and I have talked about how if Jet McKinnon, in the past we talked about, if Jet McKinnon was a little bit bigger of a back, he'd be our 3-down back. He'd be the full-on guy. If he was a little bigger, he'd be our perfect Andy Reid running back. And I got to ask you, with his injury history, and like we saw last year, we didn't see Jet McKinnon like fully till like towards the end of the season as we got into the postseason. And it seems like over the last few weeks, well, obviously with CH being out, but more so in the last few weeks, we're starting to see more of McKinnon, and obviously we're getting closer to the playoffs, and we're starting to get him more involved in the rotation. Because before he was just coming in on third downs, and that was it. Now he's kind of getting, he's getting more involved than he had been previously. Is this obviously something that we're doing this purposely? Because as we go into playoffs, we'll be using him more. Is that what that is?
I think so. Jet McKinnon he's Mr. Everything. He's the one that can do it all, to be honest with you. And you got to have a guy like that, especially kind of teaching Pacheco, who may still doesn't quite have the pass protection down. Still needs to be desired on his end. But also, too, when you go into the playoffs, you got to trust a guy like that. And so what you got to understand is the NFL season is longer than the college season. And so that's another thing. You got a rookie coming in, running the football. He's going to start feeling it. He might not think he will, but he will start feeling it like, okay, because your body get used to, man, I'm only playing, 10, 11 games. But now I'm doing, 17 and then the playoffs, and I'm playing until January, like, man, this is what we're going to be doing. So Pacheco's season usually is going to start ending around now. It usually would be. So this is important. So Jet McKinnon's coming in, taking a little off. You see Pacheco on the sideline. He's just watching. He's learning. He's watching. And so it's tempo. It's all about tempo. He's been there before. Jet McKinnon, you ain't got no question about him whatsoever when you come in. You already know he's got it down. He already knows what to do. He could do it, shell out all the blocking responsibilities, everybody on the line. I'm sure as good as Patrick. You might even let Patrick know, hold on, we got to come here, right? And so that when you have a veteran presence like that, that's so important, especially in pass protection. But also too, when you're making plays, he can make guys miss. Jet McKinnon has just always been a talented back ever since he got into the league. It's just the injuries that's just been holding him back. We know that, and so it's unfortunate because this kind of led him here. But I'm glad it did, because to be honest with you, I don't know what we would do with a guy that didn't have that type of experience, and then you have a guy like Pacheco coming in and trying to do things, and it leaves you a little bit more vulnerable to things as well. So he's just a solid guy, man, all the way around. I'm a huge Jet McKinnon fan, huge.
Yeah, you guys remember last postseason when the Chiefs absolutely slaughtered the Steelers, had that historic game against the Bills, and then had themselves a really good first half against the Bengals. Outside of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, there was not a better player on this roster than Jet McKinnon in that run. He was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was funny, too, because the whole entire season, he did not do a single thing. He was not a contributor whatsoever. And to your guys' point about him being an undersized player, he's in his 30s now. He's dealt with a ton of injuries in his career. This guy has flourished in the opportunities he's been given in Kansas City. Mm. And I'll be honest with you guys, as much as I love Pacheco, and I think that kid is an absolute stud, I'm pretty sure they make cocaine out of his DNA because the dude is just constantly just up and down. He has so much energy. It's absurd. It's insane. But I mean, if you're gonna ask me right now who I have the most faith and trust in when it comes to the running backs on this team going into the postseason, it is without question Jet McKinnon.
Oh yeah.
Not just because Isiah Pacheco's some rookie. It has honestly, it has nothing to do with Pacheco. It has everything to do with what McKinnon's done. And I think that he is just a guy that is a dual-threat running back, and that is the perfect asset in an Andy Reid offense. Because the best running back in the history of Andy Reid's offense has been Brian Westbrook. And Brian Westbrook was a dual-threat running back. He didn't light up the scoreboard with the rushing stats. The man was catching the ball and was great in pass pro. He knew how to protect the Donovan McNabb. He knew how to protect and Kevin Kolb, any of those guys he played with back in the Philadelphia days. Yeah. That is what McKinnon is. He is that version of that guy in this new offense for Andy Reid in Kansas City. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, it wouldn't shock me none if the Chiefs make a deep playoff push that Jet McKinnon is not one of the 3 to 5 most valuable players on the Chiefs roster because I call him Clutch McKinnon because in games like this when you need him, he goes out there and performs. I mean, the man only had 13 touches tonight and had 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's numbers that Saquon Barkley should put up. That's numbers that the best running backs in football should put up. This is a guy that's a backup to a backup when everyone's healthy. That's absurd, man. So he deserves all the praise. He deserves the flowers. We got to give it to him, and I'm expecting him to be another big-time contributor this playoff push.
You know, and kind of on that, when you think about like running screens and how it looks, like a lot of it is just kind of it's the acting part of it. He's been around. He knows how to do it, how to be effective. Because sometimes a young guy just tell his hand. He's just so amped up. Like Pacheco said, screen, screen. You can tell he's going to run a screen, or pass protection. You see him kind of bouncing back, and I'm watching him. I'm just watching, how he's actually, being utilized in the backfield and whatnot. And he's still got a lot to learn. He's got a lot to learn, but he's got a great guy in front of him, McKinnon. And so, like he was saying, even if he has CEH, look, CEH, I'm not putting CEH in when I got Jet McKinnon back here to catch the ball out the backfield or does the pass protection that knows everything. Like I said, that's a guy, that's a hat you can lean on. There's one guy you could definitely lean on, especially in the playoffs. So, without a doubt, man, he would be, like you said, one of the 3 or 4 guys that you look at stats-wise, like, wow, here's McKinnon. Shouldn't surprise you whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, look at that playoff run last year. He was huge for us. And JD and I talked about it after that Bengals game. We should have given him the ball more in that Cincinnati game. He was eating.
Man.
Yeah, so it's good to see that it's kind of the same kind of formula, because towards the end of last year, I remember his Broncos game was his come out party. That was like week 16, I believe. He had a huge game in that one, and that was kind of okay, we're going to start to see a little bit more of him as we continue. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.